Well, everyone, I think we're going to go ahead and try to get started. It's working for the moment, so we will hope that that continues. But we want to thank everyone for being here, and we're excited to be able to present as part of the Mars Society. This has been a great conference. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the American Public University System Analog Research Group, and I want to introduce our team at the beginning. So I'm Kristen Miller. I'm the faculty advisor for the group, and I have with me here today, who will be doing the presentation with me, Scott Van Hoy, who is our program manager. We have Terry Trevino, who's one of our rockstar analog astronauts and flight director for our upcoming mission. And we have Ed Alvin, who is our fantastic and very supportive department chair. And we're really glad to have everybody here with us. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction to us, the American Public University System is a fully online and asynchronous university. So as an online university, we think a lot about the importance of providing authentic and hands-on research experiences for our students, right? Our student body is not your average college student body. We have a very high percentage of military students. I think when I last looked, our percentage is somewhere around maybe 60% active duty, with another 20% coming from military dependent, retired, National Guard, reservists, etc. We also have a civilian population. Which means that our students have a lot of strong skills. They have a lot of real life experience, and they have experience in isolated and confined environments. It also means that with our mix, we're capable of putting together crews that have a mix of both military and civilian students, crew members, which I think is really relevant in space studies today, and especially as the commercial teams are entering the space race. We also, another unique thing about our student body is that we have a very high percentage of returning and adult leaders. So these are not your college, not your average, freshmen fresh out of high school type students. We've got about 90% returning leaders. And what that means for us is that these are people with lives, right? They have families, they have work responsibilities, they have military service. Their time is precious. So if we're going to offer them something, then it's got to be solid, and it needs to be something that is going to really enhance their education as well as their careers. So with those things in mind, we created the APUS Analog Research Group, or AARG. It's our little space-themed Jolly Roger there, which is our symbol, kind of fun. And we have, basically, we kind of split the purpose for the organization into 5 parts. So our primary purpose is to create student crews to serve in analog simulations. Our main focus is research. We're a research-based group. We want to provide meaningful research opportunities. That's part of that educational component, where we give them hands-on educational opportunities in a place where they can perform that kind of research. Our research is multidisciplinary, and it's team-based. I think that's so important in today's world. Teams are how science is done, and that's particularly true in the space industry. We also, as another component of that educational experience, is we provide leadership and management services. So opportunities, sorry. So AARG is a student-run organization. That's one of the things that makes our organization a little bit more unique. It is not faculty-run, but student-run and faculty-supported. That makes my life a lot easier. And Scott's going to tell you a little bit more about that. And finally, we seek partnerships within the analog community to give our students opportunities to do this research and to go to these analogs. We have a couple of really cool partnerships that we're excited about. We're thrilled that this January, we will be adding MDRS to that list as we send our first crew at the end of January, and we have some other neat projects coming up. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Scott, and you can take it away.
Hey everybody, so as Dr. Miller mentioned, we are student managed and faculty advised. So that makes it a really unique opportunity for people like me. I just finished my master's in space study from APUS. So I'm also DoD affiliated. So what that means for me is I do work full time, but then also I manage the program on the side. So it is a really cool program to get involved with, and that's what makes this really unique. So the program structure is also something that makes AARG different than most analog research organizations, because we're agnostic to the facility. What that means is our program structure is designed so that no matter what facility we go to, we have the competencies in place to be able to execute a mission at that facility. So for that, our organizational structure is set up to where we have a program manager, which is currently me. And the program manager oversees the flight directors for the individual missions. So right now we have 4 missions that are currently in some process of planning. So we have one that just finished at the inflatable lunar Mars analog habitat at University of North Dakota. We have another one that is just starting with crew selection. We have our MDRS mission coming up. And then we have a mission scheduled for January 24 at the Aquarius Reef Base, which I'll talk about a little bit more at the end. So the flight directors will oversee a deputy flight director as well as a crew commander. So you can think of the flight directors as project managers. They're the ones that are kind of overseeing that mission. So the crew commander is, of course, going to be the person leading the crew on the mission. And then they're going to have mission specialists. And I know at MDRS, there's different names for all the different mission specialists, but essentially that these are the student researchers. So the students that come up with the research project to take to these analog facilities and conduct their own research. There's also the deputy flight director. So they're kind of the operations lead. And then they're leading anybody who's willing to help out as far as the operations specialist goes. So these are just students who want to come in, they want to help. So we'll assign a task. Hey, can you work on a meal plan? Can you work on the timeline? And then also we have a risk manager, somebody who's willing to look at the facility and figure out what is unique to this facility that we need to manage risk on. And also, so we'll have multiple flight directors at a time based on the mission that we're doing. And Terry's actually our flight director for MDRS. So if you have any questions for him, then he's also part of this as well. So in addition to that, we have a chief of staff, and we're still a growing organization, even though we have about 30 active students, about 70 total. So we're just now implementing the chief of staff role. So what we noticed is that, especially with part-time students, it's really hard to manage more than a few people at a time. So the chief of staff is somebody that's just going to look over the department leads, is essentially what they are. So we'll have a safety officer, and we actually just initiated a safety officer as well as our safety program, a recruitment coordinator, communications manager, and training officer. So we do have a kind of a syllabus curriculum for the training officer and for the program, and that's very research heavy to where we can teach research methods to our students. Cool. So in addition to the flight directors leading the missions, the chief of staff kind of leading the team that is going to help out with all the different missions, we also have the lead faculty advisor, which is Dr. Miller, and one of her main roles is to help with the research coordination. So we have a team of students who's the research coordination team, and they essentially have a checklist, which Dr. Miller will talk about here in a second, that allows students who are not actively conducting research to get involved with the research process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Miller to talk a little bit more about the research program within AARG.
And one thing that Scott didn't tell you is that he created that entire organizational chart and has implemented it within the organization. It's really phenomenal and key to the success of the program. So we're really lucky to have him with us. So research is really, as we said before, it's our main focus. We're not just sending people to space camp, right? Or to just have this, to go pretend to be astronauts. Our main goal is for them to do real research while they're there, and research that can support for our graduate students, for example, their capstone thesis projects. And to do that, there's some challenges to organizing research and team-based research in an online and asynchronous environment. So we do some training. We do it mostly on an online format. We do it completely in an online format, mostly asynchronously. We do have some synchronous meetings, and we do have some training videos that we've created for asynchronous training that they can use for reference. Two of the most important, we have a training video on ideation. So how do you come up with a research project that is important, that is interesting, that can be done in an analog facility? And then we have a training video on development. How do you go from that idea to actually creating a real project and actually getting ready to execute it? We provide support through the IRB process. A lot of our studies, most of our studies involve some sort of IRB guidance. And we have a group of subject matter experts from our faculty at APUS that can provide specific guidance on the different topics. But the real backbone of the research support that we provide is the research coordination team, the RCT. And they provide support both pre and post mission. And the thing that I really love about the RCT, we currently have 5 in our research coordination team. It's a mix of both graduate and undergraduate students. fantastic opportunity for them. So what happens is that each of our crew members who are required to have research projects, as well as anyone else associated with the program who wants to send a research project on the mission, they're assigned a member of the RCT who will kind of hold their hand and walk them through the process. The RCT provide weekly reports to the mission flight director. They are going to be tracking the progress we have some research milestones that they track the progress through, and they send a weekly update to the flight directors, letting them know where each research project is, if there are any problems with them, what their next goal is. Really helps the flight directors who have enough on their hands with all the rest of the planning and don't need to be tracking down those dates. They also provide research materials for all of the researchers. We tend to use quad charts especially at the beginning of the process, as well as consent forms, some of our other standard forms, reimbursement forms for expenses, other things. They provide information to the crew on the habitat requirements. So here are the power requirements that you're going to need to work with. Here's the space. Here's what will work in this resource. They provide some guidance on the IRB process. At APUS, our IRB process is a two-part process. There's a training, and then before you can even start the IRB. So they kind of help students know where to find those components and to get started on it. As well as we've taken the questions from the IRB, we've created a document with them so they can start working on them even before they've completed the training and get a little heads up on that process. We also they provide help with methods and background research. And the way they provide help mostly is that it gives you someone to talk over your project with, so that you're not getting to the habitat and finding out that you've forgotten a step or you've forgotten an important piece of material, and now you're in an environment where you can't run to the store and get it, right? So that's really helpful. And then they provide some support for encouragement for support for project readiness, as well as publications afterwards. I think it's not on the slide, but I think that the best thing about the RCT is that, especially for the undergraduates who are on that team, is that it gives them a really intimate knowledge of the research process and what the steps of that are and how to work through that process. So then it prepares them so that they are ready to create their own research project to send on the next mission. And that's a really valuable experience. So our research projects, we have student-led projects, we have group projects, we do collaborations with other outside groups. Our research is multidisciplinary. This is just a brief list. It's not by any means comprehensive of some of the things that we do. And these are some fun pictures from past missions. Now let's, Scott, speaking of past missions, we'll talk a little more about that.
So as I mentioned before, we're agnostic to the habitat that we use as far as our program structure goes. But so far, all we've done is ILMA missions. So we have a agreement, and they've been super great with us as far as the University of North Dakota, allowing us to use our habitat 2 times per year for a 2-week mission each time. So far, we've done 3 missions to the inflatable lunar Mars analog habitat at the University of North Dakota. And so our first mission, AARG-1, or ARG-1I is what we later renamed it to, was a 10-day mission, just experimental, get there, see what it's like, and then bring those lessons learned back to the organization. From there, we went to ARG-2I, which was 6 months later. And what was cool about ARG-2I, and by the way, the naming convention, we had to switch to the letters because we started doing multiple habitats. So like instead of doing ARG 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just not knowing exactly where some other habitats would fall, we decided to go in and label it by the facility. So when you see ARG-2I, that is ARG-2, second mission to ILMA. And so this was a 2-week mission, and this is what we were really trying to gauge fidelity. So what does a good fidelity in a mission look like? And also we started testing time delay. So that led up to ARG-3I, which actually just finished about a week ago. And so this was our full kind of Mars time delay test. So everything was mission control oriented, really trying to integrate mission control, and then figuring out what a 10-minute time delay looks like as far as communication issues that may come up. So those are the crews. So as you can see, a lot of mix between just kind of who goes to the habitats. So as Dr. Miller mentioned, we have a lot of military students, active duty military especially. So we get that really good mix between experience levels in the habitat. So upcoming missions, and this is what we're excited about. So now that we have a pretty good base for ILMA and what we do and our procedures for ILMA, not only are we going to continue the ILMA missions doing 2 per year, we're going to start branching out to other facilities. So our long-term goal is that we want to do 2 missions to ILMA per year, and then also do 1 additional mission per year at some other facility. So this year it's going to be, or I guess January here coming up, it's going to be MDRS. So MDRS has been a long time in the making for us. We actually started the program based on trying to get a slot at MDRS, and then we branched out to ILMA, and then it kind of swapped. So MDRS, we're going there in January. And so we have the crew prepping for that right now, prepping their research and making sure everything's good to go with that. And then as we start ramping up fidelity, both at ILMA and then with MDRS, with having a little bit more of a remote environment, we're stepping it up 1 more level. And so this is what we're really excited about. So the Aquarius Reef Base, and some may know the NEMO project, which is NASA's basically project for operations testing at Aquarius Reef Base. So this is a underwater habitat in about 60-ish feet of water off the coast of Key Largo. And this is an underwater facility that is often pretty restricted in use to bigger organizations like NASA. So what's cool is we're able to reach out to them and collaborate different ways to make it to where not only can we go there safely, but we can do it with some changes in operating procedures that make it accessible to universities. So what that means is that we're going to go there and test a few new procedures and do a 4-day mission in January of 2024 is the current plan. And we're going to basically hopefully open the door for more university and more research at Aquarius Reef Base. So that is going to be a lot of planning, and we're already working on that, and it's over a year away. But it's probably the mission that we are using a lot of the competencies we learned from MDRS and from ILMA to bring that into a more high-risk environment. So we just wanted to say thank you for your support from the APUS chapter, the AIAA, Dr. Albin, who's back there as well, Dean Welsh, Dean Douglas, the American Public University System, and I'm probably taking Dr. Miller's slide right now. So, and also to follow us. So, or you can just reach out, talk to me after, and then we can exchange contact information. We're always open to collaboration. If you have your own project, we're willing to share what we've learned from our program. And also for our program management plan. Our program management plan is codified, it is written down. So that means that if you want to start something yourself, come talk to us so that way we can share what we've learned and then pass that on to other universities. And then also we have a website, it's up there, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. You can find us on any of these locations. And then, yeah, just come check out what we're doing.